From East LA to the rising sun, every day there's another one. A jihad over here, a jihad over here. One guy even put a bomb in his underwear. But east, west, and north, we cover them all. It can make you dizzy, but never give up, y'all.
I feel like these are getting longer and longer.
These are getting better and better, David.
Like going to be like the first 10 minutes, Robert's new latest Epic of Gilgamesh. Islamic version.
Yes, the Divine Comedy. But in the Islamic version, it's the Inferno, and the Inferno. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to This Week in Jihad, and welcome to the great David Wood, who is here with us again. A little bit of housekeeping real quick. Sorry for the self-referential nature of this, but I did say on Twitter a few days ago that the person who came up with the best reason for hating Robert Spencer would get a free copy of the Critical Quran. And we have a winner. I said I'd announce it tonight, and the winner is Shaida Bacha, who was banned from Twitter, but he's writing now as Asif Aziz. And he says, Shaida Bacha hates Robert Spencer because he deserves it. He is Satan in a human body. No one can compete Islam. Islam has covered your religion and lifestyle, but you unbelievers are for hell. You reject Holy Quran and last prophet of Islam. You are a winner, Shaida Bacha. So just send us your address, and I will send you a Critical Quran. Meanwhile, here is Shaida Bacha's latest death threat. He sends them to me fairly regularly. It says, Robert Spencer is responsible for... And then there's a nice picture of the Critical Quran. Get your copy now. Shaida Bacha's got a free one coming as soon as he sends us his address. Robert Spencer is responsible for 26 books full of misguidance and ignorance. You must stop making fun of Muslims or Islam. You hear that, David? Otherwise, you know well. Muslims can die, but they can't allow Kafirs to attack the honor of Muhammad Baba. Stop your barbaric acts. Yes?
That's bull. I do it all the time.
Or get ready to bow down your head before entering hell. Shaida Bacha Sherpao. Shaida, you're a great guy. We love you. Sending out a shout out to you tonight. And remember, send us that address so that I can send it on to the feds and they can get you a copy of the Critical Quran stat.
Yo,
anyway, yes, sir.
Where were you when they were looking for Bin Laden? You could have had this contest back then, Bin Laden. See, because everyone thought he's hiding in a cave and that he's got no technology and stuff, but he's just chilling in a house, looking at porn on his internet all day, and he would have checked out your Twitter feed, and then
porn on my Twitter feed.
He just saw the contest, and Osama would have said, I want to kill him because he's the worst person in history, and he exposes all our plans, blah 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 blah, and then he'd have won the contest, and you'd have asked him for his address, and he's stupid enough to probably give it to you.
Well, David, it's partly because I had so many other books to write, and I didn't get to that one in time. Really should have written the Critical Quran years ago, but that's another story, ladies and gentlemen. It's here now. Better late than never.
Could have gotten Osama even earlier.
Yeah, well, Shaida Bacha may end up giving the man a run for his money, but we can hope not. Shaida, remember, send us that address, man. I can't give you the Critical Quran without an address. Anyway, let's get going here, David. There's plenty of jihad. We have this. Shall we start with the stupid infidels of the week?
Couldn't hurt.
There's always more. Okay, we have the Pope. I think the Pope is the big star of the stupid infidels week this week. He went to the wonderful nation of Bahrain and participated in a dialogue forum with the Muslim Council of Elders and Sheikh Ahmed Al-Tayyib, our old friend, the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar. And at this wonderful symposium, he was, of course, played like a fiddle once again by Ahmed Al-Tayyib, who told him that he was tired of hearing all these lies about Islam, the religion of peace and equality. Now, David, if you had been there, what might have you responded to Ahmed al-Tayyib? At-Tayyib.
Yeah, yeah, I might have, asked him about some very basic passages like "fight those who do not believe in Allah." Um, Asked him about some of the, even in the hadiths where Muhammad says that he's been commanded to fight people until they say there's no God but Allah and that Muhammad is his messenger, and just basically ask, hey, if it's okay for your religion to call us the worst of creatures and to call for violence against us, how are we just not allowed to say anything in response? I'd like to know that. And then also, hey, didn't the Pope, like, I don't know, like 7 or 8 years ago, like someone was killed for criticizing Muhammad or something like that, and then he was on a plane and he said, we must not criticize, if you say something about someone's mom, you'll get a punch in the mouth, and like made it look like he was defending the killers.
Yes, that's right. The Pope also said in 2013, authentic Islam and the proper reading of the Quran reject every form of violence. He said it, ladies and gentlemen, and he was not doing stand-up. This was a real, serious, apostolic exhortation from the successor of Peter himself.
And we know it's right because it came from world-renowned Islamic scholar who knows more than all previous Islamic scholars, the Pope.
Indeed. The Grand Sheikh of Vatican City. But Ahmed at-Tayyib was not the only one who ran circles around the Pope and left him with no hope, unable to cope. The Pope was also taken to the cleaners by this Muslim Council of Elders, whom he addressed twice by saying to them, Assalamu alaikum. Now, David, I don't mean to quiz you here. I'm not really naturally an interviewer, and so these questions being unrehearsed, I don't mean to throw you any curves, but do you have any remarks on why Assalamu alaikum might have been kind of a faux pas for the Pope to throw at the Muslim Council of Elders, and not once but twice?
You know what would have been funny if there was in the Muslim sources there's that, I forget what the phrase was, but some of Muhammad's Jewish critics would actually say like "death be upon you," but it sounded similar, and they would sort of mumble it. That'd have been funny if I mean, it'd have been messed up because I don't even want these Al-Azhar scholars to die and stuff like that. But it would have been it would have been kind of amusing.
Indeed. But Ahmed at-Tayyib, of course, he didn't correct the Pope, but Assalamu alaikum is actually something that should only be said by a Muslim to another Muslim, because only a Muslim can wish another Muslim peace, because only a Muslim has peace, and only Muslims are deserving of peace. So he shouldn't have said it. It reminds me, actually, back when I was in college, way before you were born, and back in several centuries ago, and I had these Muslim guys that I was always talking to, and so I just learned the phrase and went up very proudly and said to them, Assalamu alaikum, and they said, oh, hello. And I was kind of shocked, and I thought, well, wait a minute, aren't you supposed to say wa alaikum assalam? And he said, you're not a Muslim. I can't return the peace to you. And you shouldn't be saying that to me. But the Pope had no idea. Ahmed at-Tayyib, of course, didn't tell him anything about this. But he went on to say that this Muslim Council of Elders is a wonderful group because they are committed to dispelling erroneous interpretations that through violence misconstrue, exploit, and do a disservice to religious belief. Isn't that wonderful? I'm so glad we have a group like that out there that's dispelling erroneous interpretations of Islam.
Nice. The interpretations of Muhammad and his followers and 14 centuries of the top Islamic scholars. You're familiar with the passages, but in the hadith where Muhammad tells his followers, don't give the people of the book the greeting forced them to the narrowest part of the road. In other words, you're sort of pushing them out of the middle of the road because you have to degrade them. And then there's one where Ibn Umar, the son of the rightly guided Caliph Umar, was walking by. I think it was a Christian, might have been a Jew. I think it was a Christian, and they gave each other the greeting, and he kept walking. And then someone told him, "Hey, that was actually a Christian that you just greeted." He ran back and said, "Give me my greeting back."
Yep, that peace shouldn't be upon you, man. You can't have it. All right, so in the UK, always a great source for stupid infidels, the National Union of Students, which represents over 7 million university students in the United Kingdom, first chose a president, Shema Dalali, but they asked her to resign. They actually removed her from office last Monday on finding her guilty of anti-Semitism. And so I thought, wait a minute, they're surprised? What did they think? She's a hijab-wearing, Sharia-observant, committed Muslim. Did they really think she wasn't going to be anti-Semitic? What do you think, David? What's going on here?
I don't know. I mean, you can find Muslims who are cool with everyone, but I mean, if someone is taking Islam pretty seriously, let's just say the odds of anti-Semitism go up significantly because of what Muhammad taught. And when they have to defend it for some reason, they'll say, because of Israel. When you've seen all these Muslim scholars who are responding to that objection, they say, no, we would hate them anyway, even if they had never touched Israel, even if they had never gone in, we would still hate them anyway because our religion commands that. But in addition to us hating them already, we can't stand the fact that they, won that war.
Yep. All the different wars, as a matter of fact.
A lot of them.
It's incredible how Allah just keeps not managing to obliterate Israel.
Especially it would be like all the countries around them all simultaneously attacking, and they just catch a smackdown. Yeah.
Well, do you have you ever read From Cairo to Damascus by John Roy Carlson?
I read a book with a similar title, but the author doesn't, so I think it might be different.
Very fascinating book from 1948. John Roy Carlson was an Armenian writer who went to Cairo, obviously, and he joined up with the Arab jihadis who were going to destroy the new state of Israel. But he said that among many other problems that he observed with them as he was following them and even going into battle with them or near battle, he saw that a lot of these guys, they were total fatalists. Allah was going to give them victory or not, and what they did more or less didn't really matter. So they would shoot all their ammunition, fire into the air, say Allah will guide the bullets, and then go drink coffee in a cafe for the rest of the day.
And then they lost?
Oddly enough. It's inconceivable, but they did.
Sucks. They should have had those guys training, doing the training for jihadis always.
Indeed. Yeah, it makes me wonder, the jihadis don't seem to have that kind of faith because they do seem to be generally better trained. Not in all circumstances, but certainly quite often. Okay, let's go to Mali, David. And
really? Like on a plane?
Yeah, why not? That would be wonderful, Fly to Bamako. They would be shocked to see us, I tell you. And we would probably be shocked soon after that. But in any case, in Mali, recently, there was a demonstration. Tens of thousands. I mean, a really huge demonstration. Tens of thousands of people. Let me see if I can get the picture here just for fun. The protest was about There it is. Look at that. Massive crowd in Mali. And it's, oddly enough, it was not about people twisting and hijacking the noble religion of peace and giving the impression that it was in favor of violence. But the demonstrations were because there was a video circulated in Mali containing criticism of Islam, the Quran, and Muhammad. David, have you ever seen a comparable demonstration of Muslims against terrorism?
No. In fact, I remember. I remember years ago in Dearborn. I actually went to it. They were calling for like some million Muslim march against terrorism, and like maybe 30 people showed up.
Yeah, I remember.
Like it was going to be. There were almost more reporters there trying to get camera angles to make it look like it was a lot of people. There were almost more reporters there than there were people who showed up to condemn terrorism.
I remember that very well. There were actually several of those, and they all got massive publicity, far greater publicity than their numbers warranted. But none of them got more than like 100 people, and most of the people in attendance were non-Muslims showing their solidarity with the moderates. Not saying there are no moderates out there, just that they're not coming out in huge numbers to show that they oppose all this that's going on.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's like you can grant that there are Muslims who don't want violence and so on, and I've known plenty of them over the years, but you're right, it doesn't seem to get them excited to run out and condemn the violence. It's like they get far more upset. They get far more upset by someone criticizing their religion or making fun of Muhammad than they do about people slaughtering unbelievers in the name of Allah. And I can only speak for myself here, but I'm sure this is true for a lot of people. If a Christian were going out slaughtering people in the name of Jesus, and versus someone making fun of the Bible or something like, I'd be way more bothered by the Christian going out and slaughtering people in the name of Jesus.
Oh yeah. Also, it must be said, David, that the Western Islamic apologists who profess to oppose all this violence that is committed in the name of Islam, they seem to be far more interested in confronting people who discuss the violence and people who oppose the violence who are non-Muslims than they are in actually going to Muslims who disagree with them and trying to convince them that their understanding of Islam is wrong.
Yeah, and this is. I mean, think about this. All the people who have debated us over the years, and we challenge you to debate this, and we will refute your claims about you. Like, it's like, okay, that's good. Happy to do that. Happy to have that discussion. But how are you not focusing on the people slaughtering unbelievers in the name of your religion? Why is it always trying to convince the unbeliever that Islam is peaceful and not convince the believer that Islam is peaceful? I think it's because they know they would get absolutely destroyed. Even if it's not literally, and they don't get murdered for saying that Islam is a religion of peace to some actual jihadis, they would get crushed in debate. And it would be them reinterpreting some of the clearest claims in the Muslim sources, and the jihadis going, are you serious? You think you're greater than Allah and Muhammad, that you get to just say what they actually mean and it completely contradicts what they're saying? They conclude that they're apostates.
So, David, you're far more versed on the scene of the Dawagandists than I am. Can you tell me, have any of those guys whom we have debated, have they debated any of the other Muslims who are open about Islam teaching warfare and conquest and subjugation?
I can say most of them certainly haven't. I'm trying to think of it. Like, I know there's a guy, Perfect Dawa. He actually tries to argue with those guys. Unfortunately, Muji's not terribly popular, but
Muji?
Yeah, Muji. His channel's
like
Perfect.
Mujibur. Okay, I was thinking that sounds Japanese.
his channel's perfect dawa, and to his credit, and I acknowledge this in one of our debates, he actually tries to have conversations with the the Ali Dawas of the world and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
that's just the problem. It's he's the exception to the rule. The rule is silence the critics of Islam who are saying exactly
Yeah.
what Islam teaches, but not the jihadis who are saying exactly what it teaches.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see Nadir Ahmed or Shabir Ali or one of those guys that insist that it's all peaceful and wonderful and tolerant and great. Let them go up against Daniel Hakikaju and tell us who has the better understanding of Islam. Let them convince Hakikaju that he's all wrong and that he should be peaceful. I'd love to see that. I think we're going to be waiting for a long time, though.
Yeah, it'll be which part of whoever leaves his Islamic religion, kill him. Didn't you understand? Which part of that was unclear? Oh no, he means what Muhammad really meant there is if you leave Islam and then you go join a foreign military and then you join, the army's coming in and then reluctantly they may have to fight against you.
Yep, it would be quite a spectacle. Anyway, let's go to France. We can take the next flight out of Bamako and land in Paris. And so
Paris might be more dangerous nowadays.
You're right. Here's actually a story about one of those guys, Ayman Ben Hassina, who is from Tunisia. And he was ordered to be deported after this, but only 4% of Tunisians who are ordered to be deported from France ever actually leave. This is quite a story, really. He stole a baguette from a bakery. He fled. He's chased by the gendarmes. He goes into a bathroom and loosens the tap, the faucet, and he hits one of the gendarmes with it, and the other one's coming at him, so he bites the other gendarme. Meanwhile, he's yelling a particular phrase. I hate to belabor the point, but what do you think, David?
Let's check and ask the Wheel of Terror. Totally random. What do we get?
It says Allahu Akbar, I believe.
Yeah, I'm going with that one.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's what he said as he threw the faucet at one gendarme and bit the other.
This is disturbingly correct. Hey, I have to say I respect the ingenuity. I mean, that's like the MacGyver of like the MacGyver of jihadis, right? Like, they got me cornered here. Give me that paperclip. I'll stab us out. Here's the faucet, right? So,
it's true. It's not your average jihadi. We have another one out of France. While we are here, terrible story, really. This is about a convert to Islam. Now, you would think that converts to Islam would be the most peaceful people of all because they are learning the true Islam, the peaceful Islam. But unfortunately, this fellow, Anthony C., they never give the last names anymore. Anthony C., he converted to Islam. And after he converted to Islam, he tried to get his mom to convert to Islam. But his mother did not think that would be a great idea. So, what did he shout, David?
Going with my classic Allahu Akbar.
I think, yeah, it's always good to go with that. It's really amazing, though. One day they're gonna shout, "This is MAGA country," but not yet. And where did he stab his mother?
Oh man, I need another jihad whirl. I'm gonna go with neck.
That is correct. Amazing. You should go to Vegas.
I would fund all of our work for the rest of our lives. I should have played the Powerball as correct as I am at.
You don't forget you got to film that Jihad Jeopardy show sometime.
Yeah, we're gonna do that.
Oh, it's going to be great.
I'm gonna wait till I gotta wait till someone like really, really ticks me off, and I want to get them. I'm gonna
Okay.
do that.
All right. So we have interesting story out of Pakistan. A female suicide bomber who killed 3 Chinese teachers in Karachi in April was described by Reuters as being highly educated. And I thought that's kind of interesting because, you don't hear it so much anymore. Because nowadays the terrorist focus has shifted, and the FBI and all these outfits are looking for different kinds of terrorists. But a few years back, you used to always hear that poverty is what leads to this. Poverty and ignorance, lack of education. So we really need to build schools, and that will take care of this problem. And so
Don't forget climate change. I've heard that one too.
Yeah, climate change as well. And so you'd think that this highly educated woman in Karachi, instead of becoming a suicide bomber, would be devoting herself to fighting climate change. But somehow she got the idea that becoming a suicide bomber would be something that would be a good career path. I don't know. Where do you think this idea comes from?
It's one of life's great mysteries. She must have been watching your show and got all of her information about Islam from you.
That must be it. You're right. It's the deleterious influence of This Week in Jihad coming to life. Really, I'm sure YouTube will take that seriously, and so, we're probably not long for this world, but there are always ways around these things. Interesting story also out of Pakistan, David, while we're on the subcontinent. Imran Khan, the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, who was very pro-Sharia, very, very much a Muslim hardliner, he was shot in the leg at a campaign rally. He's trying to become Prime Minister again. And the man who shot him, Naveed Mohammed Bashir. I should have asked you what his name was. Anyway, Naveed Mohammed Bashir said he shot him because Imran Khan claimed to be a prophet. Now, I never heard anybody but Naveed Mohammed Bashir say that Imran Khan claimed to be a prophet. And as a matter of fact, when I put it on Twitter, there were all these Pakistanis saying, "You are lying! Imran Khan has never claimed to be a prophet." And then they played the video of Naveed Mohammed Bashir saying, "Imran Khan said he was a prophet, and that's why I shot him." But then Imran Khan himself, brushing aside these claims, he said that the Prime Minister, Interior Minister, and the head of the military in Pakistan were responsible for the shooting, and that Pakistani Muslims should wage jihad against them.
Wow.
What do you think he meant? Surely he meant, like, get their kids to school on time, right?
That's what jihad means, or, working out when you don't feel like it and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So, surely...
It's cool. The Pakistanis going to be all shredded up after this.
Oh, yeah. Because they're going to all go jihad at the gym. All right, out of India, right next door.
Hey, that would be a funny skit. I just want it out there because I will literally forget that I said this 5 minutes from now, and then someone will eventually remind me. But that would be funny. We'll have someone playing a sheikh in a mosque, and he says that you must wage jihad against the infidels. Go wage jihad. And it shows all the guys go to the gym.
Yeah, they come back and show the imam, "See, we are jihadis." What, is he dead? No, we're shredded. You're idiots. You got to get Werner Klemperer to play the imam. Colonel Klink, ladies and gentlemen, look it up. It's a 1960s cultural reference long before you were born. Anyway,
I
yes.
used to drive my German teachers insane because all my German accents came from Hogan's Heroes.
Hogan. Yes. Okay. Now I'm tempted to do this, uh, do the rest of the show here and in a shocking incident, a 46-year-old tribal man, uh, Werner Klemperer, ladies and gentlemen. You look him up. Anyway, more impressions coming soon. In India, terrible story actually. A 46-year-old Hindu was attacked by a Muslim mob because he was drawing water from a well that the Muslims used. Now, why would that be a problem?
Yeah, Muhammad said you can't use the same vessels and so on as non-Muslims.
Indeed. And it's even in the Quran itself, 928, the idolaters only are unclean. And so if they are unclean, you don't want them drinking your water. So they beat this man to death. Meanwhile, also in India, a couple of women were discovered. They were accused of being lesbians. And a Muslim mob burst in on them, tortured them, burned them, threatened them, and so on, because they were considered that they might be in a lesbian relationship. What is the punishment for that in Islam, actually?
That would be death.
That would be death. Although there is the possibility held out in the Quran, if they testify, that is, if they have the witnesses confine them to their houses until death overtakes them, or Allah finds another way. Now, Allah finding another way, well, it might keep you from having these people walled up in your house slowly dying, but it's a little bit unclear. A lot of people say that refers to the stoning that's only in the Hadith and not in the Quran at this point. But of course, Caliph Umar said some people might think stoning is no longer Islamic because it's not in the Quran, but it used to be, and Muhammad did it, so you better get with it. Anyway,
Yeah, it's one of those because they have their we have those different categories of abrogation where it's still in the Quran even though it doesn't apply anymore. Then they have it's removed from the Quran and it doesn't apply anymore. And they have the category it's abrogated from the Quran, but the ruling still applies. And that's one of that category. And it's like just I mean, how obvious can it be that you just invented an explanation for every scenario?
yep. It's a deeply complex thing, David. It's very complex and beautiful theology. Hey, they that they have physics classes in the Palestinian Authority, and this was a very interesting physics class. It posted a diagram of the path of the martyr Uday at-Tamimi, who set out from the Shwafat refugee camp toward the entrance to the settlement Ma'ale Adumim, and asks them to calculate the actual distance the martyr traveled in order to kill Jews. And I thought, well, that's at least ingenious. You're at least actually trying to learn something, but everything is saturated with this same hatred.
That would be that'd be another funny skit where a teacher has a classroom of kids, and in order to keep the kids interested, everything she's teaching has to be relevant for terrorizing unbelievers.
That would be great.
If
Yeah.
if Jihadi A leaves town traveling at 60 miles per hour, and Jihadi B leaves an hour later traveling at 80 miles per hour, how long will it take Jihadi B to pass Jihadi A and blow up his target first?
That's beautiful. This is going to be a great curriculum. In Germany, a Syrian Muslim migrant, he stabbed the ticket taker at the train station. No, the bus station, excuse me. And then He was shown after the arrest, here he is, smiling happily. And people were baffled. This actually got coverage in itself in Germany. Why is he smiling after he just stabbed an innocent man? Why do you think he might be smiling? Might have been smiling, David.
I don't know, but I mean, as far as his belief is concerned, he just scored some major points with Allah.
There you go. That's a big thing to smile about. Points with Allah are hard to come by. He's a very unhappy God. So, it's really tough. Okay, we have also... Oh, I had one other... Oh, there it is, yeah. Turkish television. This was an interesting thing. Turkish television showed the Turkish sphere in 2050. It was a political show about what's going to happen over the next 3 decades. And the Turkish sphere, you can see it on the map here, it encompasses Turkey, Greece, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Israel. Actually, Israel is left out. I see that now, but that's very odd. Arabia, Yemen, Oman, Egypt, Libya, and Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, the Caucasus region of Russia, and so on. What do you think is going on there? Why on earth would Turkey think that it had a right to all that territory?
It looks like stuff that at one point had been controlled by Islam, and therefore it's all theirs.
There you go. Drive them out from where they drove you out. If it was Islamic once, it's Islamic forever. In Denmark, 2 Muslim migrants from Afghanistan. They plotted the murder of a pregnant woman. Seems to be known to them, and not all the details are known, but they did attack her outside her workplace, dragged her out of her car, and where did they stab her, David?
Going with neck.
You are correct, sir. Once again, for another $100, they stabbed her in the neck. Switzerland, excuse me. In Switzerland, there were a couple of Muslim migrants from Albania. Actually, father and son. This is interesting in light of the how you have pointed out in the past in stories about the Muslim rape gangs in Britain, how often this is a family affair and you have fathers and sons participating. So this was a father and son team, and it seems that they kept 4 women as slaves for 16 years in Switzerland. And so, I don't know, what can one say really about that, but do you have anything to tell us about that, David?
Well, I mean, Muhammad had female slaves, so who's going to object?
Exactly. If Muhammad did it, it's good and right, and that settles it. That's it. There is no other consideration that need be taken into account. Let's see. Oh, I forgot this when we got off the stupid infidels, and this is a very important stupid infidel story. In Germany recently, there was a Muslim from Somalia who went on a knife rampage, stabbed some people, and Jan Caron, a journalist there in Deutschland, he criticized Somalia following the attack. And he said that it was dangerous to bring people from this country where certain values were inculcated into Germany where they would live out the same values. And so this Somali, by the way, he shouted something during the attack, during the stabbing. What? Yes.
I'm not even gonna look. I'm not even gonna look, so people can know it's totally random. I'm not even gonna look.
That's amazing. That's really quite a wheel. Allahu Akbar, it says, and that's actually
This thing's way more accurate than Muhammad ever was.
that's right. So Jan Caron actually was fired from his job for criticizing Somalia after, I kid you not, after this jihad attack by a Somali in Germany.
How dare you criticize the worst place on the planet? Have you seen Black Hawk Down? It's so great there.
Yeah, that's why they have such an illegal immigration problem. Everybody trying to get into Somalia.
And you know what's horrible? Because Shino and Shania, who run the channel Somali Christian TV, Somalia actually could be a really nice place that does really well. And it's not, mainly because of jihad.
The food is great.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But before, I mean, it's a place that would be a nice place if there weren't a constant bloodbath.
It's the ideological dominance of Islam all over the country that really, yes.
But no, I mean, notice the reasoning. You have this place that could be a really, really nice place, but all these groups are slaughtering each other in the name of Allah, vying for supremacy. And then your country takes in some of those people who, I mean, I know many of them probably are happy to get out of there and go live normal lives and so on. But shocker, you're getting some people who want to slaughter unbelievers in the name of Allah. And so, you know, that's a risk you take, of course, when you take in a group and you're doing the math. You're saying, okay, well, 90% of them are not killing us. So, willing to take the risk with the rest of them slaughtering us in the name of Allah. But what's crazy is just you can't even say anything about it. You can't say I disagree with that, or you're like the worst person in the world.
Yep, that's the world we live in. The Iranian protests are still going on, and interesting stuff coming out of Iran these days. One was Rasul Sanai Rad, who is a top aide to the Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran. And he said an interesting thing a few days ago, that we must accept the differences and open a space for dialogue through free-thinking platforms. But in the first step, our actions must be aimed at suppressing riots. Now, I thought even the suggestion of dialogue in this context, I think, is a tremendous admission of failure and defeat already. Because, as we have discussed in the last few weeks, terror is the only thing these guys know. And if they're talking about dialogue now, the terror is clearly not working. I wouldn't trust them. I wouldn't sit down with them if I were one of the protesters. But even the fact that he's saying it is significant, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Reckon. That's really how it works. It's try this. Oh, that's not working. Try this. Oh, that's not working. The goal's always the same, but you change your methods depending on the circumstances.
Yep. Speaking of methods, also we have another interesting bit of information coming out of Iran, and that is that an identification card that was found in the dropped wallet of one of the security forces shows that he was not Iranian at all, but was from Afghanistan and belongs to an Afghan Shiite group, the Fatemiyun. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. Are the Iranians running out of Iranians who are willing to crush the uprising of their own people? Is it getting that bad that they have to go next door and get some Afghans to do what Iranians won't do? I don't know. It may be that there's some other reason why they have Afghans there. But I thought, well, that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the Islamic Republic is continuing the terror and the brutality, murdering a man, Yahya Rahimi, who was driving to work, and he passed by some protesters, honked his horn in solidarity, as we often see in the United States when there's protesters out on the street and people drive by and honk and wave in support. And for that, he was found and killed by the government forces. After all, if Muhammad was made victorious through terror, they believe they will be as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we've said it before. I mean, like, we're looking at the leaders in Iran saying, look how horrible this is, but what else can they possibly do, right? What, not kill all these people? Then they're gonna lose their power. So they know it's like crush them or nothing, because there's nothing else we can do. And wow, wild stuff.
Indeed. And, we talked about it a little bit last week, the knocking off of the turbans of the mullahs. I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, no, they shouldn't do that. They shouldn't stoop to their level. That's not their level. It might be, you might think, gee, that's very rude to go knock off somebody's turban. But these are the same people who have been threatening, harassing, terrorizing, sometimes even imprisoning and torturing women for not wearing the hijab. And so I'm not really in favor of any kind of violence at all. And I don't want anybody to get hurt. But I think to say that there's some equivalence there is just ridiculous.
One quick comment here.
Yeah.
Prophet Mahabat said, Robert or David, are there mosques in the U.S. with loudspeakers for azan? Yes, there are. I don't know how many, but yes, there are. I've seen them in Dearborn, Michigan.
Oh, yeah. I believe it was in Dearborn some months ago. There was a guy came in to the mosque as it was going on and confronted the imam and said, don't you realize not everybody is Muslim here? Which, of course, they know very well. That's one of the reasons why they want to broadcast the azan. And CARE tried to make it, the Council on American Islamic Relations tried to make it into a hate crime and so on. Didn't hear anything about it after that, though. I don't know how it came out. In Nigeria, terrible story. The Fulani herdsmen, once again, who are Islamic jihadis, they entered several villages on market day when they knew that it would be crowded. Opened fire, killed quite a few people, including 18 children. And this also is intending to strike terror in the hearts of the enemies of Allah. In Italy, a Muslim from Bangladesh was arrested. He was confronted by a couple of police officers who were women, and he attacked them and brutally beat them and demanded that if he was going to be arrested, it had to be by a man, not by a woman.
I mean, in that situation, if I were the police, I would have women arrest him. But we know that would be like charges of Islamophobia.
Yeah, that's actually true. Yeah.
This man only wants to be taken into custody by a man.
But actually, he brutally beat the female cops. One of them is still in the hospital, with severe injuries. So it may be that they had to call in some bruisers to make sure that this guy was taken into custody.
Yeah, I don't know what cops are like over there, but if they're anything like cops over here, you assault some cops, they're gonna get revenge on you. Let's just say.
Yep. Palestinian Authority, Hebron. Very big story. Story got a lot of attention. You probably heard it. The mayor of Hebron offered people 20 shekels, about $5, to kill dogs. And Palestinians went out and killed large numbers of dogs in response to this call. Now, why might he have said that it would be a good idea for them to go kill dogs?
I'm going to go with Muhammad ordered his followers to kill dogs for 200.
I think you won the $200, David. You're racking up quite a total tonight. I tell you, I'm going to have to run a fundraiser or something to cover all this. The mayor of Hebron, he offered a cash reward to get rid of strays, but the Palestinians went quite far beyond that, enthusiastically taking up his call to kill the dogs, apparently because of Muhammad's directives. Meanwhile, there was a jihadi in the Palestinian areas who was actually serving Majdi Zaatri, who is serving 23 life sentences for transporting a jihad suicide bomber to a bus which he bombed and murdered 23 people. He has been given $306,972 and been allowed to get several university degrees while he is in prison. This is part of the Palestinian Authorities' program of paying jihad terrorists and their families. And of course, what you pay for, you get more of. It's the law of supply and demand.
Quick follow-up question here. Abel Abraham says, only black dogs or all dogs? Abel, that depends on the hadith you go to. At first, Muhammad commanded his followers to kill all dogs, and then his followers complained that, sometimes they use dogs for hunting and so on. And so he dialed it back, that you could have dogs for specific purposes, like outside dogs if they're hunting, or like a guard dog for outside. You can't have a dog as just like a pet, it's nothing else but a pet. But the exception was, if it's a black dog, it has to die anyway. So it's interesting. There's a progression in Muhammad's revelations. And by the way, the original command to slaughter all dogs, that was because the angel Gabriel stood up. Muhammad didn't show up when he said he was going to show up, and then Muhammad had to find out why, and it was because there was a puppy in the house. So that's when we have to go slaughter all dogs. And then, of course, the revelations just kept changing based on how much his followers complained about it. It's interesting religion.
And then the question that I put on the screen just now, how much per dog? That was about $5. 20 shekels. And yes, the Palestinian Authority uses Israeli money.
I bet a bunch of them were like, $5, we'll do it for free.
Yeah, they probably were thinking, what, we're going to get paid for doing something we love? This is perfect. Interesting to note also the hadith that says that Gabriel will not enter a house with a dog or a picture in it. That hadith is pointed at particularly two groups. The pictures, people who were likely to have pictures in their house were Christians who would have sacred icons in their house, and the people who would be likely to have dogs in their house were Zoroastrians, because the Zoroastrians considered the dogs to be sacred. And so what Muhammad is saying is kind of like when he says the Jews and the Christians let their mustaches grow long and trim their beards, so you trim your mustache and let your beards grow long. And it's another variation of that. Don't be like the Christians or the Zoroastrians. Don't keep dogs or pictures, but get rid of the pictures and kill the dogs. Interesting story out of Dagestan in the Caucasus, Russian province, but an Islamic one. This group of 4 sisters from Dagestan, they fled to Georgia. That is, of course, Stalin, Georgia, not Jimmy Carter, Georgia. And they fled there because they were being beaten at home. And the Council of Imams, the chairman of the Council of Imams of Kaspiysk in Dagestan, he said that the rights of the family had been infringed And this was a terrible thing that the parents have lost their children in this way. Now, why would it be something that an imam would get upset about if sisters were fleeing domestic violence?
I just wanted to point out the parallel real quick. I mean, imagine that's what the government and the media. That's how the government and the media wanted to respond to Rivka Berry. Remember that?
Yeah, that's true.
Same thing.
So, in Islam, of course, you are to beat women from whom you fear disobedience. This is in the Quran. Consequently, the chairman of the Council of Imams of Kaspiysk, he is very upset that these sisters have fled this because that's the will of Allah. If they're being beaten by their parents, that's the will of Allah. And they are fleeing the will of Allah.
Yeah, and you see this too because Abu Bakr beat Aisha even after she was married to Muhammad. That's in the Hadith, and because everyone's always beating poor Aisha. But yeah, so it's wives and daughters. Just beat them. What's crazy is Abu Bakr is beating Aisha in the presence of her husband. Isn't that like wild? He would never do this in a million years because he's a super nice guy. But I mean, I'm just like, I can't even imagine my wife's dad coming over and beating her in front of me. 'Cause that would be like, there'd be some problems there.
A slightly different culture, I suppose.
Yeah.
All right. Well, David, let's see. I know there's some that I skipped here. Oh, in the UK, they're spending $8 million a day to house migrants in luxury hotels, including $1.3 million a day for Afghans in particular. Now, nothing can go wrong with that, right? That's just an extraordinary act of beautiful generosity, isn't it?
No, I mean, I might convert to Islam just to go get the free housing, man.
Yeah, because it is luxury hotels are being put up in 4- and 5-star hotels. You can't get hotel reservations in these nice hotels in Britain these days because they're full of these migrants.
Must be nice.
Indeed.
Can you imagine? I mean, and it makes sense because again, there are lots of Afghanis who do not want to be ruled by the Taliban. These guys were literally hanging onto the side of a plane, plummeting to their certain death and so on in order to get out of, in other words, clinging to the siding of a plane and falling to your death would be better than being ruled by the Taliban. I have to say I agree with them. But, of course, then you get some of them out mixed with some actual jihadis and so on. And there are plenty of people who don't want to be ruled by the Taliban. Nevertheless, they still want to fight for Sharia and so on. And then you come to the UK and you put them up in these 4-star hotels. And it's like, wow.
It's amazing.
Genius moves.
Meanwhile, one last thing before we go, and that is in the UK, very interesting article in a Christian publication, Premier Christianity, by a Christian there in Britain who said that, as a Christian, I'm worried that Islam is above criticism. And he says the concept of Islamophobia plays into a victim mentality that society should not encourage. Defining Islamophobia makes it virtually impossible to avoid interpretations that encompass any criticism of Islam. That is, what he's saying is, you start talking about Islamophobia, and it's not defined between attacks on innocent Muslims, which are never justified, and criticism of jihad, terror, and jihad doctrine, which is always justified and necessary. And you end up stifling the debate that we should be having and must be having about Islamic doctrine. Mm-hmm. Is that not the case, David?
Yeah, and I mean, notice it would be one thing if Islam were like the most peaceful, wonderful, non-confrontational thing in the world, and you said, "Guys, could we not be talking? Could we not be criticizing that? It's so nice." When no one applies that, I mean, I'm sure there are some really creepy Mormon leaders out there and so on. Every Mormon I've ever met in my life is like the nicest person in the world, and people just make fun of them. You can even have the Book of Mormon musical doing nothing but making fun of them on Broadway. It's fine. But you get to Islam, and Islam is this ideology that calls for the violent subjugation of the entire world. It calls us, Jews and Christians, the worst of creatures. It calls for our violent subjugation specifically because of our beliefs. Calls for all sorts of horrible things like, beating women into submission, killing apostates, and so on. And so it's like, if anything in the world it should be open to criticism, it's that. And somehow it's the one thing we're not allowed to criticize.
That's the craziness of the world we're in. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us also to the end of this hour of This Week in Jihad. Next week I'll be hurtling through the air in a tin can around this time, so it might be a couple weeks before we're back, but there's likely to be more jihad, and so we're likely to be here again. Till then, stay away from the jihadis, be safe, and God bless you all.